You did well down here. I think you can run the lab by yourself.
Everyone forgives Jesse because he cries the most. But tears don't erase murder, manipulation, and meth dealing. Let's stop pretending. Few television characters have inspired as much confused sympathy as Jesse Pinkman, the eternal man-child of Breaking Bad. To some, he's a tragic figure, an innocent soul chewed up by the monstrous Walter White. To others, he's little more than a self-pitying parasite with better cheekbones than brains. The truth, as always in Vince Gilligan's world, lies somewhere delightfully uncomfortable between the extremes.
Yeah, no, Mr. White's gay for me. Everyone knows that.
Jesse is both a tragedy and a disaster, a sympathetic victim and a willing perpetrator. A man who wants to be clean, but never bothers to actually pick up a mop. Let's start with the obvious. Jesse is not, by any stretch of imagination, a good person.
It's to sell you meth. You're nothing to me but customers.
This is the man who thought selling meth to people in rehab was a clever business model, who handed drugs to a gas station attendant in exchange for fuel, and who put a bullet in Gail Bedeker's face after the most reluctant, tortured countdown in television history. Spare us the debate over whether this counts as cold-blooded. If the trigger gets pulled, the semantics are irrelevant to the victim.
I don't know.
You don't know. You know why you don't know? Because you don't think.
But Jesse's sins are often delivered with a side of pathetic incompetence. He flirts with being a predator, but only manages to look like a boy rehearsing villainy in front of the mirror. The rehab sales pitch never materialized, not because of some grand moral epiphany, but because he simply didn't have the stomach to follow through. He tried to wear the mantle of bad guy after mistaking an acceptance speech for life advice, but ultimately discovered he lacked the steel required to be truly evil. In other words, Jesse wasn't noble. He was just bad at being bad. And then there are the parents. Critics often cite Jesse's treatment of them as evidence of his irredeemable character.
I think we should check his arms for needle marks.
Yet a closer look reveals a household so steeped in denial and performative parenting that one wonders if Jesse's only real crime was not living up to the family stick figure decal plastered on the back of their car. A decal, it should be noted, that literally erased him. When his younger brother's joint was conveniently pinned on him,
Jesse Bruce Pinkman.
Jesse was expelled from his home and effectively from their lives. The perfect child was protected. The problem child discarded. Of course, it doesn't excuse Jesse's spiral into meth-fueled chaos, but it does help explain why he never stood a chance. For those still convinced Jesse is uniquely reprehensible, a reminder.
He poisoned a little kid.
He exists in a world where Walter White poisons children, Gus Fring slits throats like a Michelin chef, and Todd cheerfully executes a young boy in the desert before asking about lunch. By comparison, Jesse looks less like a demon and more like a tragic screw-up dragged through hell by men far more ruthless than himself. His great crime, perhaps, was wasted potential. Unlike Walt, who had cancer and a warped death drive, Jesse had no excuse. He was born into suburban comfort and squandered every opportunity until he became a punchline.
Hey, I pay my rent, bitch!
The kid with perfect teeth shouting, "I pay my rent, bitch!" as though financial responsibility could redeem his soul. Yet, and this is where the audience's whiplash begins, Jesse also reveals more conscience than anyone else in the series. He is the only character truly broken by Drew Sharp's death, the boy shot by Todd.
There will be plenty of time for soul searching.
While Walt shrugged it off as collateral damage, Jesse tried to funnel millions to the family. He was stopped, of course. He is always stopped. The writers delight in showing us a man who tries, fails, and suffers for daring to care. This is why some cling to him as the show's moral compass.
Killed a dog.
He feels guilt. He weeps. He regrets. Unlike Walt, who becomes a monster with operatic grandeur, Jesse is the cockroach crawling underfoot, refusing to die. Too human to fully despise and too pitiful to fully admire. He isn't better than Walt or Gus or Mike. He simply carries the visible scars of remorse.
Someone came along and shot him in the face.
And yet remorse does not erase reality. Jesse is still a murderer.
We're done cooking.
He still manufactured meth, distributed poison, manipulated addicts, and lived off the suffering of others. His tears do not revive Drew Sharp, Jane Margolis, or the countless nameless junkies caught in the chemical crossfire. To celebrate him as a tragic hero is to confuse suffering with virtue. One does not become noble simply because one is punished. This is the brilliance of Gilligan's writing. Everyone in Breaking Bad is a piece of garbage polished to varying degrees of shine. Walt becomes a tyrant, Mike a killer for hire, Gus a sociopathic perfectionist, Saul a swamp rat in a suit. Even the supposedly innocent are compromised. Marie shoplifts with abandon, Hank collects racist trinkets, Skylar launders money while wringing her hands. In this landscape, Jesse stands out not because he is good, but because he is transparent. His sins and his pain are equally on display, raw and unvarnished. It's fashionable to claim Jesse is tragic but not evil. The truth is less flattering. Jesse is both tragic and evil. A man destroyed not just by Walt's manipulations, but by his own willful incompetence.
Why not? Maybe she's right.
His tragedy is that he knows it. He understands more than anyone that he has wasted his life.
4 days. Working at the laundry?
He tries to escape, to reinvent himself, to walk away. But every attempt collapses under the weight of his own choices. Walt drags him back, yes.
I'm selling.
But Jesse also walks back willingly, time and again, as though addicted not just to meth, but to failure itself.
Get us out of here, kid.
By the series' end, Jesse has become the closest thing Breaking Bad offers to a survivor. He escapes the Nazis, drives into the night, and lives. But it is not triumph, it is exile.
Jesse, I just want to talk.
He remains, as he began, a man too weak to rule, too broken to heal, and too damaged to be anything other than the last reminder that even the least bad of Gilligan's characters are still part of the rot. The enduring fascination with Jesse Pinkman lies in that paradox. He is both a victim and an architect of his own misery. He is sympathetic but culpable, pitiful yet infuriating. To call him a piece of shit is accurate. To call him tragic is also accurate. And perhaps that is the genius of Breaking Bad. Two things can be true at once. Stop believing Jesse was loyal to Gus. He wasn't. And the evidence is all over the show. One of the more persistent misreadings of Breaking Bad is the idea that Jesse Pinkman was somehow converted by Gus Fring, that his loyalty shifted away from Walter White and toward the chicken kingpin who promised him mentorship and respect. A touching thought, but it collapses under even the most casual scrutiny.
No, he will waste me if he thinks I'm a liability.
Jesse was never loyal to Gus. He was terrified of him. That is not the same thing. Take the much-cited episode in Mexico, where Jesse performs emergency medical heroics and saves both Mike and Gus. The popular interpretation is that Jesse proved his allegiance there. But Jesse's actions reveal something entirely different. He simply could not stand by and watch a man die when he was the only one who could help. This wasn't devotion. It was his chronic inability to be a cold-blooded killer, the same flaw that made him falter over Gale.
You did well down here. I think you can run the lab by yourself.
Gus was saved not because Jesse had chosen him as a patron, but because Jesse couldn't stomach passive complicity in murder. And even then, Jesse's true concern was Mike. Saving Gus was collateral, a condition of ensuring the doctors would even try. Later, when Walt's scheme with Hector Salamanca eradicates Gus once and for all, Jesse shows no grief.
Still saying it wasn't the ricin.
By that point, he even learns that Gus had not, in fact, poisoned Brock with ricin. If Jesse had truly crossed over into Gus's camp, this revelation should have sparked fury, proof that Walt had tricked him into betrayal.
So Gus didn't poison him after all.
Instead, Jesse shrugs. Gus dies, the world moves on, and Jesse accepts it. Hardly the behavior of a man mourning a fallen mentor.
Mike made the pickups and I guarded him.
The truth is that Jesse's bond was with Mike, not Gus. Mike treated him with the stern pragmatism of a reluctant father figure. Jesse wanted to keep in touch even after Mike insisted, "When I'm out, I'm out." Contrast that with Jesse's interactions with Gus, which were never marked by warmth or respect.
Probably started as Gus getting Mike to babysit me.
Gus never valued Jesse. He tolerated him for Walt's sake, and later attempted to shape him into a replacement cook. If Walt had never insisted on Jesse's inclusion, Gus would have discarded him without hesitation.
I ran over those gangbangers. I killed Emilio and Crazy 8.
Just as he tried to arrange through the two dealers before Walt intervened. Gus Fring, for all his veneer of composure, was loyal to no one but his empire and his thirst for revenge.
Él es mi compañero, sí. Yo lo necesito. Él es mi compañero. Por favor, se lo...
His sole emotional tie died long ago with the young man executed in Don Eladio's courtyard, a moment that extinguished any possibility of personal connection in Gus's life. After that, there were no allies, only tools. Walt was a temporary necessity, Jesse a reluctant apprentice, Mike an efficient employee. None of them mattered beyond their usefulness. Jesse, however, was never built for such clinical detachment.
If you kill him, you're gonna have to kill me. Come on.
His loyalties may have been muddled, but they were real, most notably toward Walt, despite their endless betrayals. Even when Walt manipulated him into believing Gus poisoned Brock, Jesse clung to the fragile partnership, desperate for reassurance that murdering Gus had been necessary. He still had to go, right? Jesse's voice cracked not from guilt over Gus, but from fear that he had once again been manipulated into killing under false pretenses. That line wasn't loyalty. It was coping. It is worth remembering that Jesse's choices were rarely driven by allegiance to any boss.
I have this coming.
He was guided by desperation, guilt, and flashes of conscience. He killed Gale because he had to. He agreed to Walt's plan against Gus because he thought Brock's life was on the line.
I guess I never thanked you for what you did.
He bonded with Mike because Mike represented structure and honesty in a world of liars. But Gus? Gus never owned Jesse's heart, his conscience, or his trust. At best, Jesse worked for him under duress. The larger irony is that Walt understood Jesse better than Gus ever did. Gus believed Jesse's attachment to Walt was shallow, that time and responsibility would dissolve it. He miscalculated.
No. The way you tell it sounds to me like he's manipulating you to stick around.
Walt, ever the manipulator, weaponized Jesse's need for belonging in ways Gus never could. Walt turned Jesse into the perfect pawn by exploiting his love, his guilt, and his desperation to be seen as more than expendable.
Without us, without Jesse and myself, you have no one.
In the end, Gus fell because he underestimated Jesse's loyalty to Walt, just as Walt later fell because he underestimated Jesse's eventual disillusionment. Neither man realized that Jesse's allegiance was not to power, but to people. He wanted connection, not empire. Gus couldn't give him that, and Walt abused it until Jesse finally snapped.
No! Before the cigarette! You stole the cigarette!
And the moral debate about Walt's poisoning of Brock? Spare the sanctimony. Yes, poisoning a child is grotesque. Yes, Walt could have turned himself in, run to the DEA, or chosen any number of non-monstrous options. But this is Breaking Bad. The man who built an empire on blood and lies wasn't about to throw it away for legal propriety. Walt made the most ruthless move available, as always. The justification that he only gave a child a stomachache to prevent his family's massacre says less about morality than about Walt's pathological to rationalize the unforgivable. Understandable? Perhaps. Justifiable? Hardly. Meanwhile, Jesse continued to stumble through moral gray zones, sometimes complicit, sometimes victimized, but never the mastermind. He was, as one sharp observer put it, the pawn in a chess game between Gus and Walt.
I told you already, we pick up money, check on things, stuff like that.
And pawns don't choose loyalty. They're moved, sacrificed, or promoted at the will of others. So let's bury the myth of Jesse's allegiance to Gus once and for all. He never converted. He never pledged his loyalty.
What did this poor bastard do to piss off Gus?
He endured Gus, feared Gus, and occasionally saved Gus, but he never chose Gus. His real allegiance lay with Walt, with Mike, and, in rare flickers, with his own battered conscience. Gus was just another cage. Jesse never chose Gus, but you can choose subscribe.